So we have Professor Daniel Isenberg here. Thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure.
I was very impressed with your comment in the morning in the panel discussion saying that the entrepreneur should be driven by fresh values rather than fresh ideas. So could you please explain more about that?
Yeah, so sometimes we lose sight of customers and we encourage entrepreneurs to follow their dreams and be
Right.
innovative and be disruptive. And we have words that actually they're sometimes buzzwords.
Right.
And we lose sight of the fact that entrepreneurship is successful when more and more customers buy what we have to sell. Could be
Right.
consumers, industrial, enterprise, government, other customers. So what we lose sight of the customer and we focus too much on our own creative ideas, and I think that was the main point of my comment. We have to learn how to create value in new ways, not just have innovative or new ideas.
Right. Okay. And you've been teaching courses in entrepreneurship since 1987, long time.
Yes.
And you mentioned, you gave us an example of how Obamacare, you know, gave new sets of opportunities for entrepreneurs, right?
For everybody, all kinds of companies, including entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yes.
So, having said that, do you have any expectations or predictions of how, public sector under Trump administration will affect atmosphere for entrepreneurs?
I think nobody really knows.
Yeah.
President-elect Trump
Yes.
is really unknown as a politician.
Right.
And so we have to just wait and see.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. And I think it's fair to say you're probably the best person in the world to ask about the case studies for the entrepreneurship and startups. So what do you think Korean government or policymakers can do to prioritize or allocate assets for entrepreneurship?
So there's two separate things, and I want to first say something about case studies.
Yes.
So thank you for the compliment. I don't think I'm the best. I think I'm good at writing cases. I have a lot of colleagues who are also very good. But I think that having actual teaching cases on local entrepreneurship is really important for letting students learn about entrepreneurship because it's so complicated. Only a case study presents the richness of the situation, the complexity in which entrepreneurs have to make decisions. So I think that, and that's a public sector activity, that's an educational activity. A lot of times we invest in universities too much in not too much, but we invest only in the research and in the more conceptual materials. But I think you have to have as part of your educational programs Korean case studies that are professionally written so that students can learn from them. So that was my comment about the case studies.
And we've discussed quite a few times about like what Korean's government can do. So any insights?
So I think
advice?
I'm always nervous when governments get too involved in stimulating entrepreneurship. I think it's the job of a cross-sector of leaders. The government playing a small but unique role, but the educators have to provide a role, the professional service firms, the large companies, the banks, the entrepreneurs themselves, all have a role to play. So entrepreneurship is such a pure private sector activity. It's almost the essence of capitalism in the good form. And so I think the government of course they have to be involved, but to not overstep their bounds. So I was given a very interesting example by the minister of SME this morning.
Right.
He said that in the year 2000, banks who had loaned a lot of money to startups all of a sudden found themselves with non-performing loans when the market fell apart. Well, it turns out that those banks were lending to startups because the government was incentivizing them to do it.
Right.
That's the mistake.
Yes. Money going to the wrong people.
It's money that isn't part of market processes. It doesn't have the discipline of the financial markets. And that's essential to make entrepreneurship work. Different actors have to have the discipline of the markets, including the entrepreneurs. It's not a pleasant process, but it's necessary.
I see. It's very difficult balance, I'm sure.
It's balanced, but again, I think government has a unique and essential role It just has to understand where the limits of that role are, and always to try and prefer that the other actors play a more dominant and more leadership role. But that's a role for the government. The government can say, how can I help the private sector itself play a role? How can I help the education sector play more of a role? How can I help the government can understand those things and serve as kind of a, if you will, what's the right word? Kind of has a broad overview of the situation.
As you can probably tell, I'm interested in creating video content specifically for the YouTubes for now. So could you please share insights on like future multimedia content market or growing trend?
Yeah, I think that we experts, so to speak, experts, and I didn't mention, but I'm a very active angel investor.
Right.
But I don't think there's anything magical about it. So we get asked a lot, where are the new opportunities and how, what should we pay attention to? You have to sort that out for yourselves.
Right.
It's an uncertain process, and you already know much more about it than I do. So it's tempting to give you advice, but my advice is there are better people to talk to.
Right. Lastly, having said that you're an angel investor, can you tell me? Very active. Can you tell me top 3 things you're looking forward to invest?
It's first of all, it's the people and the tenacity of the people. Secondly, it's their maturity. So I've now been investing more in former students who are now in their late 30s, early 40s, who have already worked in bigger companies, had successes, made some mistakes, of course, have a lot of context, but have incredibly deep industry knowledge. My experience is that's really it's not always a recipe for success, nor is not having that knowledge a recipe for failure. But I'm more and more investing in people that are, and also they build excellent teams. So they're mature, they have industry expertise, and they build teams. That's what I'm looking for. And of course, the other thing that I have to say, ethics is terribly important. That they're honest and they treat their investors with a lot of respect.
Well, thank you so much for all this great insight.
Okay, my pleasure. It's great to be here in Korea after so long.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.